They brought the excavator in just after sunrise, a yellow arm stretching over the quiet of Juniper and 8th, where a condemned two-story sat like a missing tooth in a block of small-town smiles. The address had a history in city files: foundation cracks, unpaid taxes, a complaint about a chemical smell in 2010. But to the crew, it was just another teardown with a salvage add-on: copper piping, a clawfoot tub, and any hardwood worth reclaiming before landfill. Foreman Elena Ortiz was the kind of leader who didn't shout. She stood on the foundation like a surveyor, eyes narrowed at angles and shadows. She had everyone sign the safety sheet, read the clock, and nodded. The excavator's bucket took its first bite. Plaster dust rose, then a second bite took the staircase in a single shrug of wooden nails. By noon, the house was reduced to a waist-high outline of broken joists. The way a jaw remains after the teeth are gone, it should have ended there. Debris hauled, pit filled, the lot reclassified as green space pending. But when a laborer kicked a plate of broken tile aside, he found a seam that wasn't on the blueprint, a rectangle of newer concrete against older stone, smooth as a scar. Someone had poured a basement door shut from the inside. "Hold, Anasanon," Elena said. The excavator idled. She knelt and brushed the seam with her glove. The concrete was hairline cracked, finger width, as if time had started to pry. They could have left it to utilities. Instead, Elena ordered a small core drill. The bit squealed, and after 3 wet minutes, a plug came free, exhaling cold air that smelled like pennies and mildew. A whisper of pressure difference stroked their faces, the kind of draft that feels like a presence passing by. The door itself was not a door, but a poured panel set into a frame. Behind it, a descending hush. A second plug and a bore scope revealed stairs. Elena made a call to the city inspector, protocol when a sealed substructure appears mid-demolition, then another to the salvage office because the inspector asked for a witness. The salvage coordinator, a hobbyist archivist named Marcus Lee, arrived with gloves, a respirator, and a borrowed police body cam to document the odd ones. At 2:14 p.m., they cracked the panel with the excavator's thumb, peeled it like a scab, and swung a work light into the opening. The basement was a single room, shelves, a folding table, milk crates. On the far wall, a blue plastic storage tote with a white stencil. "Open 2040, Marcus said, not unkindly. "That's illegal storage of hazardous materials if that's chemicals." Elna shook her head. She pointed to the label on a crate near the table. "Reel to reel, 1/4 inch, 7.5 inches per second, June 2025. Play this first." "Hold," Elena said. The excavator idled. She knelt and brushed the seam with her glove. Something about the dust on the lids, the way it lay unbroken, made them both hesitate. Then Elena said, "City's here in 20. We'll inventory only Marcus, whose grandfather had rescued mildewed concert tapes from a flooded hotel basement in London, understood the difference between curiosity and chain of custody. He set the body cam to record, snapped photos, and lifted the crate lid. At the top sat a handheld digital recorder, the kind that had gone out of style a decade earlier, preloaded with an SD card. Its screen was scratched, but it powered on. The file names were dates. The top file was stamped, June 25th, 2025, 14:15, "Find me." He pressed play. The voice on the recorder was ordinary, mid-40s, clipped phrases that came from spending too much time alone. "If this is Marcus or Elena, you're on time," it said, as the excavator idled above ground like a mechanical heartbeat. "If it's not, my name is Daniel Pryor. This is June 25th, 2025. If you check the crate, you'll see dates. Start with the reels. The digital recorder is for indexing. And for proof," Marcus looked at Elena. She nodded reluctantly. The city inspector was 10 minutes out. There was time to catalog, not to interpret. Marcus set the digital recorder on the table and slid a reel from a box dated 2030. Beneath it, a dated logbook, basement sessions, 2025 to 2040, predictions, corrections, confessions. The handwriting shifted across the years, from rigid block letters to a shake that looked like winter. The second file, 06-25-2030 underscore 06-30-storm night. The timestamp would have been 5 years in the future, but the file metadata, creation and last modified, registered on the device as current within minutes of the present. The screen reflected Marcus's eyes. Behind him, Elena's light skimmed over labels, utilities, water, transcripts, city hall, and a single spray-painted warning on the wall. If found before 2040, call the number. The number had a local exchange. The tape started June 30th, 2030. The river will crest 3 feet higher than forecast at the Pullman Bridge. Sandbag low points at Juniper and 10th by midnight. The transformer behind the market will blow at 1:17 a.m. Do not call the utility, they won't answer. Tell Mrs. Pruitt to move her sedan, the specificity bit like wind. Elena mouthed, Pullman Bridge? A landmark 2 miles away, its flood history tattooed on every homeowner's insurance policy. Another file, 08-04-2032_09-00- the fire. There will be a warehouse fire in the Depot District. 12 labels will change their tune afterward, but not their storage practices. Someone will say, we erased the good tapes, and that will almost be true. It sounded like a pun until Marcus remembered a news story from a decade earlier about master tapes lost to fire and the awkwardness of institutions that misplace history. Pryor's voice was borrowing public narratives, but the addresses and times in his logs were all local. Pause, Elena said softly. They both stood very still in the wet, cool air and listened to the house ghost of a demolished home. Far-off traffic, a skitter of pebbles somewhere, the steady grumble from the idling excavator above. Pryor's voice came back on the recorder. Pause. Breathe. If you feel nauseous, that's normal. It passes when you decide to act. It was a small kindness in an otherwise clinical cadence, and it landed. Clue 1 was banal, a ledger of minor predictions that, if checked against public records later, could test the premise. Clue 2 was a sealed envelope labeled, for City Inspector, open now. Elena held it up. Inside, a photocopy of a condemnation form bearing her signature from that morning, countersigned by the inspector who hadn't arrived yet. The countersignature box was blank in reality. On the copy, it showed a scrawl and a timestamp, 2:43 p.m. 8 minutes in the future. Clue 3 sat heavy, a blue tote with a white stencil, the same kind a salvage engineer had once found in a flooded basement full of crusted reels. Its lid was zip-tied with a tamper tag. On it, ink bled through, not before 2040. The number 2040 was not random. The demolition permit had noted no subgrade exceptions through that date for this parcel, a bond clause meant to prevent illegal storage. Someone had set a booby trap of ethics. To comply with the permit was to leave the tote unopened. To investigate a potential hazard was to violate the date in Pryor's plea. Then the phone rang, the number painted on the wall. Elena hesitated, then answered on speaker. You found it, said the same voice, live and raspier. Don't open the blue crate. The call ID matched the painted number. Mr. Pryor, Marcus asked. For now, the voice replied, dodging the name. The inspector's going to arrive. Hand him the envelope. He will leave to make a call. He will not come back. If you play file 3, you'll understand why you shouldn't wait for him. They played file 3. Corruption tastes like clean dirt, Pryor said. You will be asked to refill the basement with soil sourced from a contractor who's already been indicted for dumping. The city will say it's clean. It will not be. If you sign, the groundwater report in 2034 will be on you. Elena's jaw worked. The research Marcus had skimmed about demolitions in Rust Belt cities, inspections, fill, the economy of removal, came back in a rush. It wasn't proof. It was a shove. Tension peaked when the inspector's boots hit the foundation edge, and he called down thickly, What do we have? Elena handed up the envelope without explanation. The man slid it, scanned the page, went still, then said too brightly, I'll step out and check in. He vanished like a magician who did not plan to reappear. 5 minutes later, A text from an unknown number. Stop now. Leave sight. The excavator coughed into silence as the operator killed the engine and looked to Elena for orders. Second peak, Pryor's voice said from the recorder, like an MC of dread. Someone will offer to buy the salvage contract. They'll mention liability. They will say the word defamation as if it's a threat. When that happens, you've already chosen outside. A black SUV paused, then rolled on. Marcus felt the prickly heat of being watched by someone who preferred shadows. Marcus flipped to the back of the logbook. A final entry, dated 2040, page wrinkled and faint. If I'm dead, the answer is inside the blue crate. If I'm alive, the answer is outside it. The philosophical trap was elegant and cruel. Why not call the police? Elena murmured. Because this isn't a crime yet, Marcus said. It's a choice. Elena chose. She zip-tied the tote tighter, photographed every label, and called the county clerk to file a temporary stop-work affidavit, citing unpermitted subgrade structure discovered. It was bureaucratic jujitsu. If the basement was now a structure, it required separate review. If it required review, demolition paused. If paused, whoever wanted it buried would have to surface. They spent the hour before sunset doing the most boring, dangerous thing, logging tapes. The reels were a run of years, 2025 to 2040, in a voice that evolved from clinical to confessional. Predictions ranged from the mundane, a power outage during a county fair, to the specific, a misprinted ballot measure number that would invalidate a tally. Embedded among them were coordinates, names, and instructions. Put the sandbags here, not there. Do not store the nitrate in the East Bay. Tell L. Ortiz to accept the inspector job in 2027. She will change more from the inside than she thinks. It sounded like a man trying to wrap both arms around the future and failing gracefully. The twist wasn't paranormal. It was engineering. Pryor had been a municipal audio technician in the late 2000s, a tinkerer who had inherited legacy tape machines and the habit of preserving what institutions forget. In 2010, after a minor stroke, he'd become obsessed with signals, how they degrade, how they can be rescued, and how easy it is to lose the most important things when nobody's looking. He had tried to build an archive. He had instead built a mirror. The future on those tapes wasn't prophecy. It was a feedback loop of public reports, FOI aid memos, weather models, utility logs, and his own capacity to see patterns that others dismissed. He'd recorded them with dates 15 years ahead to force a listener to feel the weight of inaction now. The timestamps were a gimmick. The content was deadly serious. When the SUV returned at dusk, it brought a man with a contractor's polo and a checkbook. He offered to buy out the hazard and assume liability. He used the word defamation, then chain of custody, then let's be adults. Elena said, "We are," and pointed to the county seal on the stop work filing. The man smiled, all gums, and left. The excavator sat like a sleeping animal against a gray sky. Marcus played one last file marked 06-25-2040. The blue crate. Pryor's voice was weaker but steady. If this is being played, then the town decided to look. Inside the crate is the boring proof, notarized copies of the predictions mailed to myself, certified mail receipts to the clerk, time-stamped uploads to an archive that purges publicly but preserves privately. There are also water samples from the illegal fill and a list of names who knew. If you opened it early, you've broken a date I asked you to keep, but maybe save someone later. If you didn't open it, you trusted that the world would arrive on time. Both are moral positions, both have costs. They didn't open the crate. They opened everything else. The next morning, local reporters arrived, then state investigators with polite smiles. A Freedom of Information request went in for demolition fill contracts and inspector communications over the prior 5 years. On the third day, a junior analyst matched Pryor's sandbag here, not there, to a river model. On the fourth, a transformer did blow behind the market at 1:18 a.m., not 1:17, and crews, forewarned, had rerouted foot traffic an hour earlier. The town didn't cheer. It exhaled. Immediate aftermath felt less like victory than like someone had turned on a light in a room long thought windowless. Pryor's number rang once more. "You didn't open the crate," he said, almost amused. "Not our call to make," Elena answered. Silence then. "Thank you." The line clicked. They never spoke again. In the months that followed, the county quietly rewrote its demolition fill standards, adding third-party lab verification and public posting of soil sources. A contractor was fined, another decertified, and one resigned for health reasons. The clerk's office launched a modest civic foresight portal where residents could submit documented risk memos that would be time-stamped and archived. Due diligence made visible. None of it went viral. All of it mattered. The blue crate remained sealed in evidence under a court order, a future still choosing its moment. What Pryor engineered wasn't a time machine. It was accountability with a timer. The real question isn't whether he knew the future, but whether communities can act as if they do when the evidence is boring, distributed, and unromantic. What does it mean to honor a date on a lid when harm accumulates by the hour? When is restraint ethical and when is it complicity? In a world where archives burn, tapes are lost, and memory is spackled over by expedience, Pryor's basement asked a simple, profoundly human question. How far ahead is compassion willing to plan?
Don't forget to subscribe to Real Mystery Reports for more strange, dark, and profoundly human stories. New true mysteries every day.